Okay, we are continuing in Orach HaShulchan Aruch Chaim, Siman Aleph. We're up to Sif Yud. The next yesod that he's going to talk about is very fundamental for Penimei HaTorah. We'll hopefully have some opportunity in the time that we're going to sit to get into it a little bit. He says in Sif Yud, Kasav HaSmag. The Smag writes, Ba'asin Mitzvah Yud Zayin, and Mitzvah Yud Zayin, Mitzvahs Aseh L'Tzadik Es Hadin Al Kol HaMa'ura. It's a mitzvahs aseh. It's not just a mita tova, and it's not just a good eitzah. It's a mitzvahs aseh to be matzdik the din al kol hama'ura. On any event that occurs, levarich al tov, levarich al hara, in the same way, as the Gemara says, we should appreciate and be matzdik and acknowledge the correctness of both the things that feel good to us and the things that feel challenging and difficult and painful to us, the dinim, not only the chesed, but also the dinim. Shenamar, and this is a mitzvah saseh in the Torah, the Smag says. As it says, v'yadata im levavecha, you should know with your hearts. Ki ka'asher yisar ish es beno, in the same way that a person chastises and punishes and imposes consequences on their child, Hashem Elokecha mi'asrecha, that is how Hashem is punishing you. That is how Hashem is imposing consequences on you. In the same way, in other words, just as a parent, a good parent, right? Hashem is a good parent. Not unfortunately, there are many not good parents out there, and there are many parents who, due to no fault of their own, are not in a place to be able to be mechanech and to guide and to issue consequences to children for their actions in the proper way. But a good parent punishes and imposes challenging, difficult, painful, unpleasant things on their child, not to punish them, but because they love them and because they want to provide guidance to them. And part of the guidance is, if you go a little bit this way, there are consequences, and we can sort of put guideposts in place and boundaries in place and frameworks in place within which a person can grow. And those frameworks, of course, shouldn't be too tight and too narrow, because then there's no room to grow. You're just great at those boundaries. On the other hand, they can't be too loose, because if they're too loose, there's no framework within which to grow in. So the most challenging thing in the world, how to set those boundaries, how to know how tight or how loose to make them. But in any case, Hashem's dinim, the challenging things that we experience, those are in the same form. That's the same thing as a parent imposing on their child frameworks and constriction and consequences and sometimes punishment. But it's loving and it's educational and it's constructive. And we, the Jewish people, who are just exhausted, we've been exhausted, we've had no rest for nearly 2,000 years. He writes this at the end, very early 1900s, 1903, 1904. We who have had no rest for 2,000 years and are just exhausted and run down, chayavim anu ladas, we have to know. It's a mitzvah say, we have to know, we need to appreciate shezehu hakol l'tovosenu. Somehow, this is all for our own good. Somehow it's all for our own good. It's not punitive. It's not malicious. It's not vindictive. It's not vengeful. It's for our own good. It's the chesed that's within the dinim. It's the hamtakas hadinim, which is the process of appreciating that it's all l'tovosenu. But there's a nakuda of hashpa. There's a nakuda of positivity. There's a nakuda of chesed within the dinim, and it's all for our good, to clarify us, to refine us. Kamosha Amar Hanavi Zechariah, as Zechariah says, V'tzarfasayim kitzaref es hakesef, just as I will refine you, I will refine them just as we refine silver. U'b'chanasim kivachon es hazav, and I will examine them like we examine gold. Silver is valuable. Silver is beautiful. Silver is shiny. But in order for it to be shiny and beautiful, you have to get it to high quality silver, a high concentration of silver without intermixing it with other kinds of metals. And that is a fiery process. It's a process of dinim. By definition, it's a fiery process. It separates. The Leshem, in a couple of places, talks about how chesed is represented by water and Gevura is represented by fire. If you think about water, water is something that brings things together, brings disparate elements and helps cleave them together on a very, very basic level. If you're baking a cake or you're baking bread or something like that, you add all of the dry ingredients and then you throw water or liquid in there and it coheres those different ingredients together. You make cement, you make brick. The thing that creates a unified whole that takes different things and mixes them together and helps them cohere into a single entity is liquid, is water. By contrast, fire dries things out. When fire dries out the water, now things start to fall apart. The parts become separate. If you bake the bread too long, it crumbles. It burns and it crumbles and it loses all of its moisture, which helps hold it together. If the cement dries without the right kind of mixture and without the right kinds of conditions, the mud, the mud and the sand and everything will just crumble and fall apart if it's not properly made. And so, on the one hand, we have water. Water is used to bring things together. It's chesed. Chesed brings things together, brings people together. I give chesed to you, you give chesed to me. It connects us, it draws us together. On the other hand, there's eish, there's fire. The fire that's used, for example, to refine silver. I take ore. I take ore that contains silver, and it might contain a variety of other metals also. And I use fire to separate the different metals from each other because they melt at different temperatures. And I I remove the other kinds of metals from the silver, so I have pure silver. And I will examine you like I will examine zahav, like we examine gold. Gold is very, very valuable. We test gold. There are other things that look like gold. There are things that can be confused for gold. You have to test the gold. When you go to a pawn shop to sell your gold, they test it. They scratch it a little bit and they mix it with a little solution and they test it to make sure that it's really gold. It's exacting. Because it's valuable, we want to make sure that it's the real thing. Hu yikra b'shmi v'ani ana. You will call, B'nai Yisrael, you'll call with my name. You'll call me by my name and I will answer you. Also amarti ami, hu anihu v'hu yomar Hashem Elokai. I will answer you and I will say, this is my nation. Why? Because I've refined you like I've refined silver. Now you're my nation. All the other admixture, all of the other stuff that gets mixed up into you that you pick up and so on and so forth, it gets refined out. Now you're a pure product. You're a shining product. And I've tested you like gold. I know that what you are is what you are, and this is the real thing. This is my nation, and you'll be able to say Hashem Elokai, that Hashem is our God. The process, the painful process of the refining, of the fire, of the checking, of the bechina, of the exacting dinim, it's all there to get to this point. To bir hakasav lahamin ba'amuna shalema. The explanation of this pasuk, the Aruch HaShulchan says, is that we should believe, we should trust. Be'emuna shalema, shekal tzorasenu v'chol tiltolenu, eino al derech hanekima chas v'shalom. Part of what this is saying is that we should be trusting, be'emuna shalema, with absolute reliance and trust. The way you trust someone that you trust. The way you trust a close friend, a spouse, a parent, a child, a sibling, whatever it happens, a teacher, the way you can trust someone you can really rely on, who has your back and is only interested in what's good for you, not what's good for them, what's good for you. that all of our tsaros, all of the things we've been through, all of the dinim, all of the difficulties, all of the challenges, all of the pains, v'chol tutalenu, all of the ways in which we've been tossed around for thousands of years, and as people's rag dolls, both in terms of gullus to here, from here, and gullus to there, and so on and so forth, just used by people, tossed around like you toss around, you toss around a toy, or you toss around an object you don't care about. We've been tossed around. It's not because there's revenge being taken upon us. It's not because there's revenge taken upon us. It's there to refine us. I heard from a chashuv makubal this week, a Talmud of the Chalban, an Av Bezdin in Yerushalayim, and a Talmud of the Chalban, a close Talmud of the Chalban. He told me one of the biggest mistakes that people make is they think if you do so many bad things, then you have to be punished. Hashem needs to punish you for it. There has to be a balance reestablished. So this is the most incorrect thing in the world. There's no need for punishment. Every time you experience something negative, it's not that you're being punished. It's not that you're being hit for insulting God or rejecting God, or right. God doesn't have an ego. God doesn't have an ego, right? Oftentimes, right, if our kids might be fighting, or they might be distracting us. We're trying to focus on something, or do something, or accomplish something, and maybe it's even something we're trying to accomplish for them, and they're messing it up, and they're distracting us, and they're getting into fights with each other, and sometimes, like our egos get the better of us because we're in the middle of doing something. We're focused and we're doing something for them, so our ego is even bigger because, like, I'm doing for you, so of course, like, what I'm doing is really, really important. How dare you not understand? And we snap, we yell, we scream, we respond negatively. It's nakama. It comes from a place of ego. It's vengeful. You're messing with me, I'm going to mess back with you. How dare you? That's not what it is. That's not what the dinim are. That's not what the difficulties that we experience are. It's simply litzarfeinu. It's simply to refine us, to make us better. The challenges we face are here to make us better. It has to be that way, the Aruch HaShulchan says. De'im lokein, if that wasn't true, kavar lo haya mimenu she'eris b'chol meshech mimeos hashanim harabos. If it wasn't true that the process of all of the things we've been through as a people, and individually all the things we've been through, if it wasn't there to make us better, how could it be that we're still here? If it's there to destroy us, if it's there to ruin us, we would be gone already. There's nothing more wondrous and more miraculous than the fact that we're still here. The only way you can explain it, and as is known, there have been non-Jewish observers that have made the same observation. It's only because HaKadosh Baruch Hu cares about this situation. That's the only explanation for it. There's no good explanation for how we are still here as an integral, vibrant, small, but vibrant, integral people. And by the way, it's interesting, there have been lots of studies done, especially in recent years, and some good data analysis based on DNA and things like that. Our population has not fluctuated all that much over the course of forever. In comparison, as a percentage of the world population, we sort of stayed the same, and you would think that's not exactly the same, but more or less the same, despite things like Tach V'Tat and the Holocaust and things like that. No, our population, sometimes it dips and then it bounces back, but it doesn't bounce back like huge. Even if we have a long period of success and peace and tranquility, we're always actually relatively constant. As a percentage of an Am Segula Mikol Hamim, as a percentage of the world population, we've more or less stayed constant for 2,500 years, at least based on what can be told by DNA records and how DNA sort of expands and gets bigger and smaller, and they can look at bottlenecks and things like that. It seems like we've more or less kind of stayed the same. And not in terms of raw numbers, obviously, because there are times when world populations go down and our population goes down as well. There's fewer of us during the Middle Ages. There are many more of us now. There were many more of us before Bayis Churban Bayis Sheni, and so on and so forth. But as percentages of world population, we sort of more or less stayed roughly the same. There's no explanation for such a thing. There's no explanation for such a thing if not for the fact that there's hashgacha going on. Lo sar v'lo yaser af rega ka'av hamashgiach al beno yechido miyasser l'tovaso. We've never been abandoned. We never will be abandoned, even for a second. Like we have a father who's constantly paying attention to his only son and is constantly offering him guidance for his own good, for the son's own good. Guidance is sometimes painful. Guidance is sometimes difficult. Like the Baal Shem Tov says, everything we encounter is a message from HaKadosh Baruch Hu. If we encounter it, if I'm in the right place at the right time, that I experience a certain thing in the world, that is only a gilui of the Shekhinah, that's a gilui of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. It's telling me something. All of the difficulties we face, the nature of those difficulties, the timing, the place, who it affects, who it doesn't affect, it's all a message. Where it comes from, it's all a message. It's trying to tell me something, like a father is trying to communicate to his son. Sometimes you can communicate in words, and sometimes you don't communicate in words. V'raya lezeh. And a raya to this, a proof to this is, Shaharei kol zman hagalos hu yikra b'shmi v'ani aneh oso. And the pasuk in Zechariah says, and the proof to this is, anytime you call out to me in your galus, I respond, I answer to you. Kolomar, kishanu mispal lemei lav yisbarach one osan. When we daven, he answers us. B'chol eis tzar v'tzuka, in any time of pain, in any time of difficulty and travail. Amarti amihu v'hu yomar Hashem Elokai. I will say, you are my nation. And you, the nation, you will say, this is my God. Kolomar sharei anu roim shebechol zman ha'orach hazeh. We see in this long, long galus. In Bnei Yisrael holchem b'derech haTorah v'mitzvah, when we're doing things right, when we are growing the way we're supposed to grow, hu yisbarach koras anu ami, we get called his nation. V'anachnu koram oso Elokei Yisrael, and we call him back, the God, our God. There's a relationship there when things are going well. When there's not a relationship there, things are more ruptured. And they're more difficult. When I can call him Hashem Elokai and he can call me Ami, when I am his and he is mine, Ani L'dodi V'dodi Li, everything is fine. And we can also appreciate that even within the Ani V'dodi V'dodi Li, there are difficulties, and those difficulties are not vengeful and they're not evil. They're part of the relationship, and they're ways of refining and expanding and helping the relationship. Now, just to understand this a little bit on a deeper level, Rabbi Nassan, in a piece in Likutei Halachos on Hilchos Gevias Chov Shel Yisomim, it's not important now exactly how he connects this to the halacha itself, but it's also a piece that's closely connected to Purim, so it's appropriate to just mention. But he talks about how always there are two essential giluyim, there are two essential bechinos, there are two essential ways or senses in which there's a giluy elokus in this world. How do we encounter Hashem? Hashem is everything. Hashem is everything. And therefore, that means that there's two basic ways in which we're countering Hashem, because if we break down the basic human experience of this world to its most basic building blocks, which are two building blocks, he says there are two building blocks. Building block number one is Malei Kol Haaretz Kavodo. Hashem is here. Hashem is with me. Chesed. I see it. I feel it. It's present. There's or. Malei Kol Haaretz Kavodo. I see it everywhere. I look outside, I feel the wind, I watch the trees, the leaves rustle on the trees, work is going well, learning is going well, davening is going well, family is good, everything is good. Malei Kol Haaretz Kavodo, it's all Hashem. That's one way of appreciating Hashem, and sometimes we're there. But he says that's not the totality of human experience. And if Hashem is everything, then there are really two giluyim. There are two ways in which Hashem's presence is made known to us. The other one is Aye Makom Kavodo. Where are you? Right? You're here. Malei Kol Haaretz Kavodo. Everything is you. Everything is filled with you. Everything is declaring you and revealing you and making me aware of you. And on the other hand, Aye Makom Kavodo. Where are you? What happened? Where are you? I don't know. I look outside and all I see is leaves and a wind. And sometimes the wind is too cold, so I'm annoyed. And I daven and nothing happens, and I learn and I don't understand anything, and I'm, in tension with my spouse and at odds with my children, and I burnt dinner, and so on and so forth, and it's not going well. And you say, Aye Makom Kavodo, where are you? right? Nothing's working. Where are you? That too, that's the dinim. On a much bigger and much more serious level, that is galus. That is all of the difficulty and all of the pain that we've experienced that he's talking about here on a national level, but also on a personal level. When things don't go well, I lose my job, I do this, things are not working. Aye makom kavodo, where are you? But Rabbi Nassim says, Aye makom kavodo, where are you? You have to understand, is also a gilu, because HaKadosh Baruch Hu is everything. And the truth is that Aye makom kavodo, like the Navi seems to be saying here in the Aruch HaShulchan is drawing out from the Navi, Aye makom kavodo is actually a much higher way of appreciating HaKadosh Baruch Hu, a much higher gilu of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, if you can appreciate it. Why? Because anytime I appreciate HaKadosh Baruch Hu as being present, because I see it and I feel it and I understand it, any feeling, any awareness, any physical sense of HaKadosh Baruch Hu's presence in my life is being processed through me. And I am just a creation. I'm taking Hashem's presence and I'm squeezing it into something that my brain can wrap its head around or my feelings process. Those are frameworks. Those are limiting frameworks that can't really encompass the whole thing. And so I'm getting a picture of Hashem and I'm getting an awareness of Hashem, but the awareness I'm getting is just an awareness of what I understand. That can't be the real thing because HaKadosh Baruch Hu is beyond my understanding. But when I'm not feeling it and I say, Aye makom kavodo, where are you? You're here, but I don't see that you're here. However, you're here is not a way that I can appreciate that you're here. I'm not actually able to cognize and process how you can be here in this situation because things are bad. Now the presence of HaKadosh Baruch Hu is really actually something that's much higher than what I, a human being, can process through my mind and my emotions and my body experiences and so on and so forth. It's beyond that. It doesn't fit into my frameworks. That's a much truer form of the Soviv Kol Alman of HaKadosh Baruch Hu as a much bigger thing. And when I experience the Aye Makom Kavoda, when I experience dinim, when I experience difficulty, when we collectively experience gullus and challenge and so on and so forth, what's happening? That creates an entry point for saying, Aye makom kavoda, where are you? I need to find you. You're not here. I don't see you. And that hopefully then brings us to an even deeper awareness of the thing I'm not understanding is a much higher form of HaKadosh Baruch Hu than before. And now I sink into a much deeper emunah, a much deeper appreciation, a much deeper sense of emunah, bitachon, of trust, of reliance, of bittul, to the thing that I can't understand, right? When I'm mevatel myself to something that I can understand, really I'm not being mevatel myself because I understand it. So it's me. I understand it. So I'm not being mevatel myself totally because the thing I'm being mevatel myself is a construction in my own head of something I processed and understand. But when I'm mevatel myself, when I call out to Hashem, Yikra b'shemi, when I call out, when I daven, when I ask, Aye makom kavodo, in the situations where it's not clear where you are, then I'm accessing something that's much, much deeper, much, much higher, much more incomprehensible because it doesn't fit into the framework of chesed that I'm supposed to have. And what does that produce? That produces growth. I'm reaching out beyond what I can understand to grab the or makif that's outside of me, that I can't understand, and I'm trying to bring it in to my experience. That's growth, because as soon as I do that and I make that, now I appreciate how you're here even when you're not here, then that's something I appreciate. And immediately a new level of or makif of what I don't understand opens up beyond that. And I'm slowly, slowly climbing rungs of the ladder. This is a process. This is the process of siruf. This is the process of refinement. This is the process of clarifying again and again and helping me grow, both individually and as a people, is through dinim. So the mitzvahs say, Litzadek es hadin, levarach al hara k'moshe mevarach al hatova, is just is an essential mitzvah. It's a fundamental mitzvah because this is how we grow. Instead of staying static in, I understand what I'm experiencing and HaKadosh Baruch Hu is here, and when he's not here, oh, that's bad, and he's not here. No, he's here. And by seeing him here, even when I feel like he's not here, I'm gradually moving into deeper and deeper, higher and higher senses and appreciations for for the totality of HaKadosh Baruch Hu that's really far, far bigger than what I can ever appreciate. Have a great day.